Okay, so what I've done is I've flattened one side pretty good, and I'm going to flatten the other side. Trying to work around the imperfections, and what I mean by that is I don't attack them directly. I don't go straight into where there's an imperfection. I come in from the sides. I you know, like on that step fracture there, I'll have to come in from here and strike inward to try to clear that off, or the long shot come in from the other side. But I don't like doing that because it can overshoot. So what I'll do is I'll probably come in from the side here. That way, when this flake fans out, it can take off that step there. That's one way of doing it. This one here, when I do this strike here on this ridge, it could also fan out and wipe out half of that step fracture to make it easier to come in from this side. You know, things like that. But I'm going to flatten out the other. And in the process of flattening out the second side, it starts to get really thin. And I've got to look closely at what's going on here just to make sure that, you know, if there's a crack, if there's a definite seam in there, not to attack it directly and cause a big step, but come in at a different angle. It looks like there's not internal flaws. There's just a lot of diving flakes in there. I mean, yeah, diving scars. I think I can use a smaller diameter on these. But if I can't drive a long flake with a smaller diameter, I'm going to switch over to the larger one. Try the easiest one first. This ridge here, try to get in there. See what I mean by it? It fanned that way and fanned that way, of course, but it looks like it didn't take off any of that step fracture. Maybe a tiny bit, but not much. It loosened it though, so I was able to peel it. Still kind of a bulky area. Still prone to step fracturing. I got to be very careful about where I send flakes in. Now this last stage is very critical, these last thinning flakes. So I have to prepare the edge carefully. So first I took little flakes off to make it more convex. And then I took some bigger flakes to bring the edge closer to the, the rounded surface, to create a better area to hit. It's not going to be below center line in a lot of those areas, but I'll be in a better position with an edge that's turned closer to that lumpy area. And the reason why I don't turn it more is because I don't want to lose too much of the width yet, if I don't have to. Yeah, and with this material, it works better if you try peeling the flakes off rather than driving them in, because it steps so easily. Peeling them off seems to work better. But of course, you don't get really long flakes when you peel. So I'll have to come up with a couple of good flakes to go across the surface here to flatten it out some more. So I'm just going to take a few more opportunistic flakes to try to get some more flatness on there. I'm going to switch over to the larger diameter. So I'm going to take some very strong strikes and try to get some big flakes. Yeah, it's a very strong peeling flake that I'm doing. I'm using a larger flaker, but I'm not trying to drive these in too much. I'm trying to peel off larger flakes. It's just a larger version of the smaller ones that I was doing. Because if I try driving too much, it's either going to hit the step and create a bigger step, or it's going to dive in, or it could send a crack. You know, instead of sending a fracture in this way, it could fracture that way. Because I'm hitting pretty hard on the edge, so I've got to do more of a peeling action. So those flakes don't dive in, because it's very easy to produce a diving flake on this material or to produce a step fracture. And see that crack here, it doesn't go to the other side, but sometimes you get these cracks that go across the blade this way, perpendicular to the face. Instead of, you know, scooping out, you'll get a crack that goes the other way when you're hitting extremely hard. I think that one's okay. So I'm just basically going to the center, creating a median ridge. It's a safe approach to tough material to just go to the median ridge. And by tough, I don't mean hard. I mean difficult material to nap. If you can do short flakes, it's better than trying to force it and do long flakes. And long flakes on stuff like this is difficult to predict because of all the flaws and stuff in there. And the weak structure of the material, it doesn't really hold together too much or too well for these longer flakes. And by holding together, I mean, you know, the flake has a length to it. If there's any flaws along that length, it'll crack and snap. And that's what I mean by not holding together. If the flake will snap somewhere along its length because of flaws or inconsistencies in the material, that's what I mean by not holding together. So yeah, I'm gonna try to do a bunch of those. Just, you know, relatively short flakes. Because this stage is kind of critical. If I want to preserve my width, these strikes have to be good. So the shorter the flake, the easier it is to make a good strike. I got kind of lucky with that one, but I knew there was a good ridge there, so I tried following it. All right, I think I can go to the smaller diameter flaker now. Maybe one more attempt at thinning it down further, and then I'll notch it. See, there's some flaws there, but that's where I'll be notching it anyway. I'm going to do some corner notches. It's getting kind of narrow, so I'm not going to do too much more thinning on it. I could be more aggressive and thin it down a little bit more if I wasn't worried about breaking it. But this is the only piece I have for the video, so. And I'm going to send this back to Jacob. So I'm going to play it safe here. Yeah. When you're aggressive at the stage where it's already really thin, it gets kind of dicey. You know, you end up removing too much from the edge and so forth. Okay, so that's thin enough, I think. I don't want to push my luck. I've already got some step fractures where there wasn't very many earlier. Okay. All right, so without taking any risks, I'm just going to try to finish this out here. It's actually quite unusual material. It'll eat through the bone easily, but it will also crush easily. So it eats through the bone like a hard material, but it crushes easily like a soft material. Which means you've got to just focus on small to medium-sized flakes with very good platforms. And watch for crushing. See, that's a crushed area. With a spatula tool, you can snap off flakes without having to worry about too much crushing. There's still some weird stuff going on there, but I don't know. It kind of looks like crushing, but it might be just some inclusions in there. Anyway, I'm going to leave these step fractures in. I'm going to do some corner notches and be done. Okay, so I've got the edge pretty much done. I just noticed there were some areas that had abrading marks. Okay. Or abraded dull spots. Okay, so I'm going to cut it off here and notch it on the next part.